Today's guest is Miriam Gunn, who has fostered growth in others since 1985 as a mentor, a licensed therapist, and a certified coach. She's passionate about helping mission driven business owners and high performers reach their next levels. Her company, leavebetter.com, is dedicated to helping you win in business and in life. So, Miriam, thank you very much for being here. How are you doing today?
Drasco, it's fun. I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited for the conversation and just to see where it's going to go.
I'm actually super excited to do this with you as well, because unlike the majority of my guests, I've actually been on your podcast and then I got coached by you, right? So it's like when you offered it to me, I was like, well, I have to walk my own talk and say yes to doing it live on air. So I know we'll be releasing that episode as well. And I'm so happy to have you come to this container and see where it goes. So, I thank you for this unique opportunity to kind of do this in this way. And B, why don't you just give us a little bit of context on, who you are beyond your bio, why you do what you do, and just anything else you would like to add to what I already read.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Who I am and why I do what I do is such an interesting conversation, and really, I think going to be the topic of our coaching today, um, because I think that earlier in life, I was in situations where who I was and what I did was maybe prescribed from the outside. So initially, when I finished with school, I was hired by a company that was very mission minded and it allowed me to work out of my gifting. It was great. But they were the ones who set the standard of performance and sort of told me who it was and what I did. And what I did was I mentored university students and I loved it. It was a really good job. At some point, I transitioned into marriage and family therapy. And while there's a lot more freedom in that, still it's very clear. And you have these external entities, AAMFT, UAMFT, who are telling you, this is what is ethical, and this is, the client brings the agenda, and still it's very clear who I am and what I'm doing. And it was very clear to me why I was doing those things. In part, that latter half, I love helping people, but also I was putting my kids through college. I said, I'll pay for your undergrad, and then after that, it's up to you. Well, so fast forward, I get my coaching certifications. I'm working with business owners. I love it. And at one level, it's very clear who I am and what it is that I do. I help people reach their next level. I help them kind of push through their roadblocks. I love the people I work with, and it's a super diverse business set of business people. But also, I'm having this major um, internal spiritual crisis of uh, what is my um, what is my raison d'être? I don't even know if I said that right. What is my reason for living? What is my IP? What am I bringing in the world that is uniquely mine? And I was in a webinar earlier today and they were talking about the difference between eulogy values and resume values. And so usually the first half of your life, you create your resume values. This is what I've done and blah, 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 blah. And you hit your midlife and you're like, I don't know who I am. And then you jump into the eulogy values of things like, trust and the depth of who you are and all this other stuff. Well, I realized this morning listening in this webinar that I've done this exactly backwards. My unique jobs throughout the decades have caused me to really develop eulogy values. I'm super fine with who I am and where I'm going in terms of that sort of space. But I never did the grow corporately, create this, write your book, create this program, stuff like that. And so I'm in that space where my soul is going, anything I want to try doesn't seem important enough. and nothing seems important. And I'm going to back up and say I was sick all last week and I watched an enormous amount of TV, Netflix, YouTube, whatever. And I was watching this Nightline thing on Ebola, and it was terrible, A. And B, I was like, it just sucked the wind out of my sails. What can I possibly do that makes any difference to anyone in the world anywhere? I just took it to like this cataclysmic space. So anyway, good luck with that.
Well, I'm so glad you come in with like such an easy, thing. Like, what is the purpose of my life? Like, no problem. Check out Tuesday. Like, we're good. So, yeah, no worries on my end. So, again, I just want to commend you for allowing yourself to go there because I think it is such a massive question. Obviously, I don't know that question from the sake of like, okay, like this like midlife angle, but I know it quite well from a reinvention angle, right? So for yourself, for people that don't know, my story, like I owned a brick and mortar weight loss center for 10 years. That ended up imploding because of everything that, I've been through. And then suddenly I had to reinvent myself into doing the work that I'm doing right now. So I get it from that angle and I know how lost at sea that feeling is. So number one, I just wanted to normalize that for you. Now, as far as all these big questions, so given that you are, a coach yourself, you have this extensive, even, clinical background to what you do, how do you think you would coach yourself through this?
Well, I have been trying to give myself a lot of grace and not put pressure on me to figure it out. I also have tried to sort of say to myself, wow, it feels a little all or nothing in there. It feels a little like you're taking this small thing and making it huge. I've also sort of said to myself, are you letting this existential space make it so that you can't or won't finish anything? I've had some trouble finishing some things of late. Um, I also am just asking questions about um, shiny objects and why does something seem interesting until you get in it just a little bit, and then out come the excuses of, well, everybody's done it, or what difference would this make? I've been sitting a lot with this question of, I was talking with a friend the other day, and we were discussing, it really comes down to a desire to bring my unique genius to the world. And so, asking some questions about what is the difference between my areas of competence, which I'm very good at, but are not necessarily my genius, and what is my genius. And then I get kind of stuck because maybe my genius feels vital but ordinary. Like, I think the thing that I am really good at is sitting with people, creating space, listening to them, helping them reach their next level. That's awesome, but it is hard to productize, or if I live in a world where one-on-one forever is fine, I'm golden. I know what I'm good at and what I do. But if I want to make it bigger than just me, I get stuck.
Okay. So how would like what's the problem there? How would you define it in your words?
I don't know how to take, I'm fully present for you. This space between you and I is sacred, and I'm not um what's the word I want? I'm not commoditizing it. I'm not using it for anything. It's just yours. It's just for you. That feels antithetical to, hey, I need to make something bigger. Come join my email list. Come join this group coaching thing. Come join this, like, let's all get into this together, rah, rah. I'm a super, super introvert, and I like one-on-one stuff. And I don't know how to make myself bigger without making myself not myself.
Okay, Perfect. So that actually gives more context. And just for the sake of like really getting you to get clear, while that does provide additional contextual information, it doesn't actually answer the core question. Okay, well, what's the actual problem that you're experiencing?
Mm. What is the actual problem? Um, the actual problem feels like so many things in my life are perfect or are good. I feel successful. And there's this other piece that wants me to be more successful. And I don't know how to be more successful in a way that honors the human that I am. And I I think some of it is a growth sort of thing where I just need to learn some new skill sets, maybe meet some new people, some new colleagues, um, and kind of push into that space. But part of me is asking the question about, um, was that what you really want? Is bigger necessarily better? And I think it's very possible that the pulling on those opposite poles is immobilizing me from making the kind of forward movement that I think I should be able to do at this stage of my life.
Okay, perfect. So to then just reflect back to you kind of where we're at with this whole conversation, right? So it starts with this grand idea of like, what's my purpose? What can I do to actually makes any sort of difference? Nothing that I do seems important enough, right? Then we dive into, okay, well, I don't really finish all of the projects that I start. There's a shiny object syndrome, right? Then it moves into like a, say, a marketing type conversation of how do I package this into something that isn't just like everything else, and then how do I like not lose the human connection with it to I actually want more success and bigness at one part of me, but another part of me rejects that or doesn't want that. So I know I'm repeating myself, but I bring it back to you again with that context and that reflection back. What's the actual problem?
I think I know the feelings I want to have, but I don't know the destination that I want to land at. I'm pretty good at getting where I want to land if I know where I want to land.
Okay. So what's the feelings bit in that response? So I'm pretty good at setting the destination. I'm pretty good at getting there, but I don't have the feeling for it. So what feeling do you feel like you're missing with it?
That's a hard one to answer because at one level I'm super content, and so I feel like the feeling I'm missing is the driving feeling, like you got to get this done and or whatever. Um, I'm pretty content, and so I think sometimes that makes me lazy. Um, but only half of me is pretty content. The other half of me is like, chop, chop, you're in the middle of your life. If you want to have something by the time you die to leave as a legacy, you better get on this.
Got it. Okay. So is this more about I don't know how to like define myself in the space that I'm in? Or is it actually about, let's just say, the cognitive dissonance between I should want more success, but then I hesitate to want that success? Like, what's landing for you there?
I don't know if this is true, but I think this is a story that I tell myself that I need to be around more people who are creating things because when you're around people who are creating things, you become like who you're around. And if you are around people who are makers, you become a maker just by virtue of like standing in their glow. And I think there were times in my life where I was very invested in making. I think one of the things that I'm running around in my brain is that most entrepreneurs are super unhealthy in the way they approach life. Like they burn the candle at both ends. And it seems like everybody, not everybody, but uber successful people, if they're lucky and become wise in midlife, go, oh my gosh, that was super unhealthy. And they dial everything back. But their life rests on all that other stuff they did in the first half of their life. Like yeah, it was unhealthy, but it opened all these doors for them. And I think that I have tried to be really healthy my entire life. And like I said, eulogy values, soulish spaces. And I think there's a part of me that says, how do you um, become bigger and at the same time remain healthy, remain focused, remain with your priorities on the things that are truly important? And I teach this stuff, but clearly a part of me doesn't believe it.
Okay. Or it's one of those like it applies for others, but not necessarily for me, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes we get into those. Okay. So then just to reflect that back, is this really a fear of what it takes to be successful at the next level? And then the confusion, is that really just a protective mechanism to keep you from going there? Like, does any of that land for you?
Yeah, I would say a portion of it is the fear of what will it take to get to the next level. I'm going to go with a good 25-30% of that is that. But I think the confusion also comes down to there are so many needs in the world, and there are so many um, ways to serve, and I get pulled between them. And let me give you some specific examples, and maybe you can see where I'm getting stuck. Like uh, global climate change, environmentalism, plant a million trees, all of that stuff is super important. However, going out every single day and planting 100 trees, I would feel like I was wasting my life. Even though on one level, I know I would be doing something really good. And like I support an awful lot of animal charities, rescuing various kinds of animals. And throughout my lifespan, I've rescued a gazillion animals. But if that's all I did full time, all I did was clean dog kennels and take dogs on walks, I would feel like I was wasting my life, even though I absolutely believe in it. And it's kind of the non-sexy stuff that makes it valuable and important. So whatever avenue I go into, what is my one thing? What is my unique contribution to the world? um when I get into the like clean out the dog kennel spaces, I feel like I'm wasting my life, and I stop and I second guess it and say, is this really where I should be putting my time and my effort? There's some people who are so single-minded and they're so focused with what it is they want to bring to the world. And my entire life I've been a jack of all trades and a master of none, which has served me really well um, up until this point. But I don't know that it's serving me as well now, because now is a time where I want to focus on something. What is the thing that Miriam brings to this world that really blesses and honors the world and helps people? And I get bored 2.5 minutes into it, whatever it is.
So, how is the client work that you're doing right now not aligned with what you just said?
I think I might need you to ask that question slightly differently.
Okay. So, I'll tell you first what I heard and then why I asked that question. So, I was hearing, I have all of these impact driven visions of what it is that I want to support, how I want to see the world improved while I'm here. Part of that is contributing to these causes financially. The other part of it could be I can contribute with my time. I can, like you said, clean dog kennels and do all of the micro of these particular things. But it's like the micro isn't enough. Like I know I could be servicing in a better way. I want to make more of an impact with the skills that I've gained, who I am, the experiences that I've had. Cool. That absolutely makes sense. And from the outside looking in and having experienced your work, I'm asking like, okay, well, how are you not serving and doing that bigger mission, or at least living that truth with the clients that you serve right now? Like, where is the disconnect between those? Is it in the magnitude of the impact, or is it in the actual impact itself?
I think that I am serving them well and bringing my gifting well. Um, but I think the space that I can't maybe overcome, that's still one-on-one. It still is not um, the larger thing. And I think I'm very, very good at taking other people's work and utilizing it. Um, Whoever it is that I'm working with, oh, here's an article by so and so, here's a book by such and such, here's an ideology, a methodology. I'm a very good flow through vessel. And I think the question I'm really wrestling with is, what is my intellectual property? Surely at this point in people's lives, they know what it is that they're bringing to other people. Um, and I think that what I bring to other people is a mirror for themselves to be able to see themselves better, and then a whole host of resources that belong to someone else. And I think my real wrestling is, how do I expand into this next level if I don't know what is Miriam's fundamental message?
Okay. So, what if you were a much better like innovator and utilizer than you were an inventor?
Yeah. Oh, I would say for sure that's the thing.
Okay. So if that is the thing and that has been true across your life, why is that a bad thing?
Um, because that part of me that wants what's the word? Recognition isn't quite right, but wants to be known for something, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And there are certain people who have become known for that thing, whatever that thing is. And there's a part of me, if you're, I don't know, are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there is the three who is the achiever, and there's the four who's an artist. And my soul is the artist who just bounces around in all these deep soulish places. And I feel like the my skeleton might be the three, the like the achiever and anyway, so I'm having a real war between these two parts of my personality. The artist who says, "Hey, make each session with each person you coach a piece of art. Make it, resound within them. And I'm satisfied. I finish it and I'm satisfied. But then I see so and so with their book or so and so with their whatever. And I'm just like, ah."
Got it. So maybe a different way to ask it then is like, why isn't it enough to just be known for the impact and result you get with clients versus I need to be known for something broader or uniquely mine?
It's such a good question. I've asked that question for the last several decades because I've always wanted to help people and to help situations. I mean, my podcast is called Leave Better. It's all about leaving things better. So this is a current that runs really deeply in me, and I don't know why it isn't enough. But there have been times where I've tried to just let it go, and I've been uniquely unable, well, not uniquely, I've just been unable to just let it go. And so I've tried to decide, is the inability to let this wanting more go, is that pathology or is that inspiration? And I'm not quite sure.
Okay. So if you were to turn that around and instead of, is it enough to, how do I ask this? Like, instead of turning around, like, is it enough to be the innovator versus the inventor? Is it enough to just help my clients through these things? What if you went a layer deeper and just ask, like, am I enough just doing this? And I should just say with that question, I just got to close my window. I know this is like worst time. There's like literally construction happening right outside.
Go
Just
for it.
1 second. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Weirdly, at the end of the day, at the end of the hour, at the end of the day, I feel good. I've done the thing. I've helped the person, and I absolutely am enough, and it's good. But if I zoom out and I look at like the overarching of my life, then I'm like, no, it is not enough. Within 2 generations, nobody will even know I was here.
Okay. And why is that an issue?
I don't know.
Okay. Perfect. So I appreciate the honesty. So why don't we dive into that?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to get complicated because intellectually, I know, within 2 generations, nobody is known, with the very few exceptions of the most heinous people in history or the absolute most famous people in history. And so, jumping back into my nightline about Ebola, like, there is a part of my brain that understands that no matter what I do, it will never be enough. And so what does that mean? So do you just say, okay, well, if it's never going to be enough, then don't do anything? Or do you say, that's okay, I'm going to write my book anyway?
Right. So what I want to reflect back to you there is like, so you're saying when I have the client in front of me and I see the impact that I have on that client in that moment, obviously as coaches, we know that's a beautiful feeling to be there and to witness somebody's, aha moment shift, whatever you want to call it. So it's like, then I know that I'm enough in the impact that I'm creating. But on the broader spectrum, I don't have a like my this is I don't have a book. There's no methodology. There's nothing to contribute to this broader legacy of who I am and the imprint that I had on the world. To me, the through line of both of those is your enoughness is generated through an external. It is the client providing me the validation that I'm enough because I've seen the shift. But then when I look out into the world, I can't see that same thing reflected back to me. Now I doubt it. So, what, if anything, lands for you there?
Hmm. I will take that and hold it and consider it for longer than just, the few minutes we have together. There is a piece of me that wants to argue with that because there are plenty of times where I'm not doing anything with anybody and I'm just on my little farm and with my animals and I'm super happy and it's good. And if I never did anything with anybody, I'd be okay with it. Or if I made this painting, I'm okay with it. That's that four space in me who's like, hey, we're all good, we're present, we're chill, you know. But I do think you have your finger on the pulse of something that is important. And it is this notion that my okayness is based on, it's not so much the validation of the other person, but the clear indication that I've made a difference in their life. That somehow or other, my okayness is um, somehow resting on a lever that is being pulled by how much help did I give them? How much good did I do for them? And I think this existential space in my soul wants a bigger lever. And what I hear you saying is you're calling into question even just that notion at all, that my okayness have anything to do with my ability to affect good change in the world.
Well, you tell me, does it or does it not?
Yeah. If I live in the artist space in me, nah, doesn't matter. I like my paintings or my drawings or my music enough, and it doesn't matter if anybody likes it or not. If I live in that Enneagram 3 achiever space in me, yeah, it matters a lot to me. And if I have a sense that the other person is not feeling valued or not feeling like I'm value added, ooh, that sends some ripples across my soul, where I'm like, no bueno.
Okay. So in that instance, the first distinction I just want to throw your way and see where you're at with it. Because you mentioned the painting multiple times. You mentioned like if I'm just out at my farm and having this like present moment, I feel good. So I don't really resonate that this whole thing is like about me being enough. What I would reflect back to you is like, is that actually about you being enough, or is that actually just you being content with the presence of that moment? Because to me, when you describe painting, when you describe being with your animals, like you sound, I'm very content in this moment. There's a lot of things I can be grateful for in my life. There's a lot of things that are good in my life. To me, that is a reflection of, hey, this is like, I am content. Like it's a beautiful, peaceful state that you have harbored and nurtured throughout your life. That to me is subtle but distinct from, well, how did you say it? My okayness is somehow resting on the lever that is being pressed by how much I've helped somebody. Like they're two very different things which can overlap many times, but
Yeah.
they're actually two different parts of you. So what lands for you there?
Yeah, no, I think what has been enormously helpful to me right now in the context of this conversation is perhaps a different way of looking at this part of me that cares very much about other people seeing me as value added. Not a new insight, but I have not in my mind seen the magnitude of my value or worth with this whole lever thing. Like that was a new image that popped into my brain as we were talking. And I can see why the lever is never big enough, because you can always make it bigger. And if you can always make it bigger, then why aren't you making it bigger? And that's in such contrast to the kind of person I want to be. I think my question is, how do you get um, hmm, how do you get the results that all the people who did it poorly beforehand, how do you get the results without the poor execution? And anyway, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little twisted in my thoughts here. I think it's enough for me to really think about this space of um, wanting my validation to come from how much I help so and so with such and such.
Okay. So knowing that that resonates with you, knowing that it is a thing that you've explored another area, like the whole people see me as value added, that's not new. I've known that pattern about myself, etc., right? But I really just want you to go back to that visual, right? My okayness is somehow resting on the lever that is being pressed by how much I've helped. To me, in that visual, the there is a sense of powerlessness there, right? Like
Yeah.
the lever is pressed by the other person, not directly, but indirectly through your perception of how much you have helped them. right? So it's like,
Right.
I need you to press this lever so that I can be okay,
Yeah.
right? As you already know, other people can't fill the hole in our soul, right? Now you extract that out to the what you started this whole conversation with, like this grandness, bigness, etc. So number one, the reflection I would have is the more you can focus on the grandness of that lever, the more it actually distracts you from looking at the micro aspect of that lever. Like, I need you, the person in front of me, to be okay, to be helped, i.e., my significance is coming from how much I am helping you. So I'm going to do everything I can to help you. Now, by looking at it wide and macro, I'm actually distracting from looking at why that is and healing that particular aspect, right? Now you extrapolate that in the business sense. Well, how can I ever pick the right thing when I am the jack of all trades? And if I pick one thing, then there's going to be all these other things that are never going to press my lever. So then I can't dedicate to be known to this thing. And then it's not enough for me to just be a great innovator and utilizer of tools. I have to develop something that's significant, and other people like constantly show me that this lever can be pressed by this legacy that I leave. Right. So now all of these decisions on the business end of like, how do I achieve the goals that I want, are distorted by the need to get significance out of the other person being helped. So I know that was a lot thrown your way. What's landing for you?
Well, while you were saying all of that, I don't disagree with any of it. I think that part of the question I am asking myself is how much of this is innate personality, and you just live with it and you work with that part of yourself to say, come, it's fine. We don't need to chase the shiny object, or it doesn't matter how many people follow you here, or listen to the podcast or whatever. Or is it, a space of continued work? And I do think it's a space of continued work. It always is a space of continued work. But I think something that I heard inside, excuse me, my own head was just this notion of I really need to pursue the projects that are interesting to me because they're interesting to me, and not because they'll help this person or that person or whatever. I need to bring that whole horizon in closer and really sort of sit with, what am I interested in? And do it for the joy of that space, and then knowing that that will attract whomever it attracts.
But if you do something, and I play devil's advocate here. So if you're gonna quote unquote selfishly do something that is about you and your interest, who are you neglecting by not helping?
I don't actually know where you're wanting to go with this.
Well, just what lands? I'm just curious, right? That's what I was saying. I would play devil's advocate here.
I mean, I don't know if I'm neglecting anybody per se.
Okay. So if you pursuing your own interests and the things that you like and the things that light you up don't end up helping a whole host of people, what comes up for you internally?
I think that it probably would end up helping people, just in a less targeted way.
Okay. And how does that make you feel?
Um, in the moment, okay, because I've been wrestling with this intensely for the last month and I'm tired of the whole thing. And I'm sort of like, oh my gosh, Miriam, give it up. Um, so I
So
would say,
that
yeah,
right there, right? I'm just gonna cut you off because
okay.
it's like a yellow flag. Not that I'm just trying to cut you off to not talk, right? One of the things I initially shared with you was the protective aspect of this part is, well, let's focus on the macro, let's focus on the big picture. So I don't actually have to look internally. And what was the thing I needed to look internally? Well, it was the lever and the need and the dependency to be of value to the other person, right? Not the want, like I want to express this way, but the need for it. And then where that got us to was the secondary conversation about, okay, well, if I'm in this space and I just focus on the thing that I want to do, I'm content with that. Like, that's pretty good. Cool. And then I threw in the devil's advocate, but okay, well, you're not going to help a lot of other people if you only help these people. It's like, whatever, like it is like, I'm okay with that. And then when push, it's kind of like, well, are you really okay with that?
I
Right.
just
And
said today I was okay with it.
right. But then as you dove into it, there was a little bit of seeding. It's like you're asking, like we started this whole conversation asking about essentially, where is the passion that I can flow all of this energy into and like really make something cool? And your answer to that was like, yeah, like it's okay. Like I can do this. Right. It's like the two have nothing to do with each other. And the reason why I point that out is the easiest person to lie to is ourselves. Right. And I've been wrestling with this for like the past month. Okay. So it's like, here you are presenting yourself a solution that sounds great and makes sense. I know you could be good at it. I get it. Yet there's no emotional charge to it whatsoever. And it's actually skirting the issue of, well, even if I do pursue this, there's still the wounding of that lever. There's still the wounding of I need to be of value. So what is landing for you there?
That's a hard question to answer. I feel like it is a lifelong space that will not get maybe perhaps solved in a conversation, but it's just, inching the internal conversation forward. Um, yeah,
So yes, I fundamentally agree with that as well. Like, this is a lifelong pattern that has, manifested in different contexts in different ways and added and redid itself in various different ways throughout the years. And now it's landing here, and there's probably part of you that's ready to make peace with it. So my other question then would be, well, what if it was easy to transcend this? What would that look like?
I think that transcending could look like several different things. So, um, I don't know, Drasco. I mean, if it was easy, you just say, yeah, do it, push the button, take the pill,
Okay.
whatever.
And what's the internal feeling with that question and with tuning into that?
I don't think that this is accurate, but the internal feeling is very much waging war. Like one of those sides is going to win. The one side is like, just be happy, do your thing, don't worry about it, whatever. And the other side is saying, no, I want to write my book. I just don't know what to write it about. I want to make my program. So like the internal, the war is very clear to me.
Right. And also just look at that war. On the one side, you have, I want to be happy. On the other side is, I want to do things. I want to write the
Yeah,
book. I want to finish the program.
right.
Those two are not antithetical in any way, shape,
No,
or
they're not antithetical, but inside they feel a little antithetical.
form. Right.
Yeah.
So that is a big clue with this, because it presupposes, with the way that the parts are showing up right now, like I can't be happy in finishing these things that I feel like I need to finish. So what's landing for you there?
I think I can be happy, but I'm afraid of being tired. I'm afraid
Okay.
of being exhausted.
And have you gone through burnout before?
No, not so much. I think this is more of a health thing. Big dog health issue 10, 15 years ago, downstream effects, blah blah. So I think that there is a part of me that wants to do big things but is also tired. And another part of me that is like, just be content, you're fine.
Right. So going back to that black and white thinking of earlier, like it's only this way or it's that way. Like there's no
Yeah.
scenario where I can be happy, energized, content, and also effective and moving towards
Yeah.
this thing.
I'm not trying to be difficult or a moving target, but I actually do believe there's a scenario where I can do all of that. But the problem in my mind is that I don't know what it should be done on, which really comes full circle. I mean, the whole lever thing is about the why behind it, but there is this other question of the what, you know? And so I do believe that there is a way to do it in balance and to be energized, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I don't know the what.
Right. And if you get it wrong, then fill in the blank.
It's just wasted time. I'm in my midlife, you know? I'm like, how many more years do I have to make this stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. And
So,
sitting in this indecision is doing what?
just more time goes by.
Right. So I'm afraid of
Yeah,
wasting time, but I'm content to waste it thinking about the perfect thing so I don't waste time.
yeah, there's some of that going on.
Right. And again, I know all of these things make sense intellectually, right? It's really the emotional logic that we're trying to pin down, right? But in terms of
Yeah,
looking at the interplaying pieces, there's a lot of them, right? So you have the lever side, which gets its significance from actually being helping, like actually helping. Then there's the belief side of this juxtaposition between, what it means to work hard and succeed and the potential threats of that life. Like I can burn out and crash, which are real, but right now they're limiting you, right? So there's like those fears and can I be happy doing all those things, etc. And then there's the aspect of being wrong. If I choose the wrong thing, then all of these other things domino effect from that. And that is often a ripple effect of individuals that have come from the background that you have come from. Like we started this whole conversation saying I've spent the majority of the first half of my life filling into boxes and doing the right things. You can only say these things. This is within your scope of work to do. This is, you have to be accredited for this. You can all of the stipulations of why you want to get out of that world and move into more freedom as coaching. So in the back of your head, that's always going to be a thing because it's been repeated so many times. And when combined with all these other parts that have like very real emotional healing aspects that get in the way, you end up in this beautiful soup of indecision, right? Which is why it took like so many prompts at the beginning for me to be like, okay, well, what's the actual problem? There's a lot of different pieces, but what's the actual problem? So again, I know there's also a lot thrown your way. What is landing?
I just think it's interesting to go back and look at the earlier parts in life and look at how I wasn't taught how to think out of the box in a lot of those ways. And I think I'm asking some questions about what sort of limiting beliefs do I have around the sort of projects that I want to do. And um, yeah, I'm sort of kicking that can down the road a little bit.
Yeah, because even if you look at this purely pragmatically and like forget the transcending and the healing and integrating all these other conflicting parts, but if you just took the Neanderthal method through this problem, notwithstanding you being sick for the past month, because I'm sure this is repeated multiple times, like if you just took this 1 month and all you did was execute and push out one of the ideas that you had, whether that was a mini core, like whatever the actual thing ends up being. Cool. Over like a year, you would have 12 of these produced. Like you're telling me that in
Right.
12 iterations of doing and exploring all these interests you have, you're not going to find or gather data on something that you actually want to do more of. I find that hard to believe, especially for somebody who's an artist. So you know the value of, like refining your craft, trying out different things, like essentially finding your voice in this. You know what I mean? Yet, even just doing that like Neanderthal method through this problem, that's also blocked by these fears of, being right and perception, the levers, etc. So again, what lands there?
Yeah, I think when you describe it like that, there's a influencer I follow who I like who says, um, "You're not afraid of failing, you're afraid of being seen as small." And that always resonates with me. There's a guy I follow on Instagram who I quite like his posts, and I signed up for something email wise and got his thing or template or whatever. And it was actually pretty crappy. And I was very surprised at the mismatch between what I'd seen in the one place and what I'd seen in the other. And I think that I don't know. I I think that the iterative process, while I intellectually believe in it, I'm not so sure I emotionally believe in the iterative process of putting something out that's meh and having it get better and better and better over time. Um, and you're right, as an artist, I know when you do a painting, there's a version that's like four versions before it's done, and it's good, but it's not that good. And then you do another version and another, you like just keep working it, and as you work it, it eventually gets to something that you're like really proud of. And I was writing down earlier today, success at one level, success in my work is putting out something that I'm proud of. And I think that that's one of the spaces I'm getting hung up in. But this conversation has been really useful to sort of, you know, sift through some of the things that are getting in the way. I love your use of the Neanderthal way to just put something out. And yeah, anyway,
So I'm glad that it resonates. And the part that I would add to that, like you're coming into this work with like decades of experience, multiple letters behind your name, multitudes of client, like real world experiences, plus your own work in this. And your first inclination on the prospect of like releasing something is like, well, you know what? I don't want to release something that's kind of meh. I'm like, if I put you in a room right now with zero prep and say, hey, here's these people, like they like need you, I can guarantee that you could fill that room with a lot of like useful, great information, experiences, coach, whatever. Right.
yeah,
So it's like the reality of who you are, what you bring to the table does not coincide with that objection. Like, oh, I don't know if it'll be kind of good. Like, it's the curse of the expert. Like, you know so much that you get hung up that, like, well, am I perfectly technically correct at this? Like, realistically speaking, you don't know until you put it out into the market because you're not in an academic sphere.
yeah,
You're not here to impress your peers. You're here to help other people. And just off of nothing alone, like forget even having experience working with you, but just off of like your experience, I'm like, if there's anybody that you're an expert on, it's helping the people that you could potentially help. So it's like, while I agree that that is the story that you tell yourself that sounds very plausible and makes sense, it doesn't hold up in reality because I know you know enough to be able to release whatever it is you need to release, right? That sense, like those stories are dangerous because they're like quicksand. You just keep telling them and you go deeper and deeper and it's like then you got to do more and more work to like actually get out of them,
yeah.
right? So I'll leave it at that, but feel free to add anything else.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good for me to hear. Because you're right. If you threw me in a room with a couple people, it would just not even be a thing.
Absolutely. So anyway, I know we're kind of getting to time, and yes, I agree. There's a lot of things to unpack here to truly transcend all of these patterns. But does that feel complete for you? Is there still something left outstanding?
No, I think this has been a great conversation. I'm really excited to just kind of continue to like post process even afterwards. Um, and I appreciate just your time and effort in slowing down, the various spaces in my head.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that it provided, the insights that you needed to at least begin the next phases of this. So yeah, close us off and let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
All right, great. So www.leavebetter.com is my website. And you can email me from there, or you can just email me directly at Miriam, Miriam, at leavebetter.com.
Beautiful. Well, as always, we'll include that in the show notes. Miriam, thank you very much for coming on, and for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Drasco.